Hello everyone, welcome back into my channel and now I'm going to watch a video called Type Moon Character Showcase Ayaka Sajyou. This video was uploaded by a YouTube account named Extreme as Mantic, so let's check it out.
Here be, and welcome to a new episode of Type Moon Character Showcase. If you aren't already aware, this is a series where I take a look at a character from the Nasuverse regardless of their obscurity and use them to explore the Nasuverse itself. A goal of this series is to share all of the wonderful stories, characters, and lore of the Nasuverse using the characters as a focus. I do this by recapping their backstory, looking at their abilities and quirks, and finishing it all off with some personal thoughts. Now for today's video, we'll be looking at a character that I lovingly refer to as my own female counterpart. Today, we'll be having a look at Ayaka Sajyou. Ayaka was originally a concept that was going to be the original protagonist of what would become Fate Stay Night. If you didn't know, Fate Stay Night was originally
I can say that
very
Ayaka
different
is
in
the
its story
female
concept
Shiro.
path, and had many ideas that existed before it was heavily reworked into the story we now know. These ideas were initially shown in the Holy Bible of the Nasuverse, character material, dubbing these ideas as Old Fate, or Fate Origin. Eventually though, both Ayaka and the many ideas of Fate Origin would eventually be sort of continued behind the scenes, and as a celebration for Type Moon's 10th anniversary, the company released a short animated OVA called Fate Prototype, modernizing all the ideas of Old
I
Fate
missed
and
that
turning it
trailer.
into an expanded canon timeline with relevance in the modern Nasuverse. Now, despite its newfound canonicity, and its ideas being further expanded on in Fate Grand Order, Fate Prototype's story itself isn't complete. In fact, we only get a glimpse of the planned story through the said animated OVA, as well as little scraps and pieces we pick up from character material and other books like it. However, Fate Prototype has weirdly enough received a light novel prequel series for it known as Fate Prototype Fragments of Sky Silver, which mostly tells the story of the Holy Grail War that happens
I know
8
that
years before
drama
the events of
CD,
Fate
isn't it?
Prototype proper. I say mostly because it also constantly flashes forwards into the quote-unquote current Grail War taking place in Prototype proper, giving us a slightly bigger glimpse into the mysterious and unknown story that is Fate Prototype. However, ultimately though, while I can tell most of Ayaka's backstory from Sky Silver, I can't exactly say the same for the full ideas, concept, and story that she was meant to have due to Prototype's full story's lack of, well, existing. But I will cover what I can, so with that, let's go into the character and backstory. Ayaka was born as the second child of the Sajyou family, a Magus family in the modern era. And despite being the second child, she was the family's successor. Under normal circumstances, only the elder sibling would be the one to carry on a Magus' family title. However, her older sister, Monica, had not inherited the magical circuits of the Sajyou family, while Ayaka had. So, Ayaka was ultimately chosen to be the family's head magus. Despite this, Monica still had an ability to cast magecraft, and she was an unparalleled expert at the craft. From the beginning, Ayaka had grown up alongside a genius older sister who had easily become an extremely powerful magus at an alarming rate, while Ayaka on the other hand was an average person that learned magecraft at a normal speed. Since Monica had much better talent, she received most of the praise and most of the focus. Ayaka grew up constantly looking up to Monica, idolizing her older sister, finding her amazing in many ways and wishing that she herself was more like her. They weren't together often since they were often busy with their own lives and studies, but Ayaka always wanted to spend time with Monica and become closer to her. It's hard to accurately describe the exact kind of emotions Ayaka had, but it's safe to conclude that she had a complex stemming from inferiority due to being constantly outshone in ability, talent, and recognition. Ayaka spent most of her early life as a relatively normal girl, but with the side job of being a fledgling magus. Her house was huge, and in it there was a place called Garden, a sanctuary that originally belonged to her mother. Garden was a
I
botanical
remember this
haven
garden.
encased in glass,
It's the
a place where her
when
workshop was
Ayaka
also
met
located. In
Saber.
truth, it was a witch's garden, one she inherited from her mother, who was a witch. Her garden was a place that her mother created specifically for her, and she was to take care of everything inside the garden, including plants, the nature, and ecosystem, while raising pigeons to use as sacrifices for a daily ritual that her father ordered her to do.
I remember
When
that
she
scene
was
when she
8,
was about
Ayaka
to
was
cut off
informed
the
about the Holy
pigeon's
Grail
head.
War, and was given both a curfew and prevented from visiting certain rooms of the house. Not much about her life specifically changed, however she began feeling lonely due to her sister's increasing absences, and her father spending more time with Monica as a result of the war. She also noticed their behaviors changing. Her father was becoming more paranoid and worried about something, making Ayaka worry for him as a result. Even more, her sister Monica felt even more strange, seemingly becoming much happier after the war began, with Ayaka noticing her unnerving smile, one that sent a shockingly cold feeling down her back. This was because Monica had summoned Saber and had completely fallen in love with him. But her love was
Oh.
warped, both innocent and obsessive. Essentially nothing mattered to Monica other than Saber at this point and her love for him. For Ayaka though, this merely meant further alienation from her
I
sister.
read that
But
in
despite her loneliness and
Typhoon
worry for her
Wiki.
family, she listened obediently as she was taught to. And for now she told herself that everything would go back to normal once the Grail War was over. As the first Grail War goes on, she eventually meets Saber in her garden. Saber acted very gentlemanly to her despite her young age, and in turn she introduced Saber to the garden, and how her dad had told her that garden was just like her. This was because it was something that her own mother left behind. As such, it was essentially just the same as her. Specifics did not matter in any way. In a way, because Ayaka's mother made both Ayaka and the garden, they both carry the legacy of their mother. And Ayaka's words of her and the garden struck a chord with Saber, making him realize the answer to something that he had toiled over for a huge duration of the war. Ayaka's words made him realize that whether it's the past or present, such things did not matter. His actions and his path that he took in history were not in vain, as even though many years had passed since her mother's passing, her gifts to the world remained the same, and those gifts had inherited her will and goal by existing. Saber likened this to his own actions in life, and it gave Saber the will to move on from his past, instead choosing to protect the present as it was, as the world would still edge closer to his goal of salvation. Ayaka's simple words had changed Saber's view on his own goal, making him strive to protect the world as it was, rather than fix the mistakes he had in the past. This interaction, though, would begin to spark some jealousy from Monica, who then captured Ayaka with the intention of sacrificing her along with many others for the Greater Grail in order to feed the Beast-class servant. Ayaka was awake through the whole experience and was in complete shock and denial that her sister would do such things, as she remembers that just 2 weeks ago, they were bonding happily over making an English breakfast. Now, though, she could only cry and scream as she fruitlessly struggled, staring into the horrifying pit that was the Holy Grail. Her father came and tried to kill Monica by rupturing her organs with a spell, but Monica revealed to him that she had been connected to the root since birth and killed him in a single blow. A now traumatized Ayaka, who just witnessed her father's death and her sister's insanity, could only ask why Monica would do such things. To which Monica replied that, as an average person, Ayaka had no real purpose other than to become an ingredient for the beast. Monica claimed that she was merely a stepping stone for helping her help Saber achieve his own wish, while thanking Ayaka for fulfilling that role. However, Saber himself
Monica
saved
is
Ayaka
the
in the
female
nick of
version
time
of
by stabbing
Shinji.
Monica from behind, quickly killing her. Saber then uses his noble phantasm, Excalibur, to annihilate the beast. He saves Ayaka, but Ayaka is unfortunately left in a coma and taken in by the Reirokans until she wakes up. After the first Grail War, Ayaka subconsciously cut off her memories of the Grail War from the shock, making her hardly able to recall the events. She lived on by herself in the Ayaka household for 8 years, and as she grew older, she began to feel more and more lonely, beginning to hate the Grail War for taking away her father and sister, wanting to avoid it completely after what had happened. Moreover, due to her subconscious trauma, she was no longer able to bring herself to kill animals as sacrifices for her witchcraft, instead using her own blood for rituals, leading the garden to be filled with more and more pigeons as a result. Her lack in magecraft talent and more depressive life further fuels her inferiority complex, leading her to become more and more insecure and frustrated with her own abilities, believing that she's unable to do what others can. Ayaka is also a very introverted person, which unintentionally further escalated her loneliness and made her have little to no friends in school, while eventually making her hate herself as a person, deeming herself to have the worst kind of personality. When being pressured by Sancred Fawn about the war and joining it as a magus, she breaks further, locking herself in her own house and screaming from the fear and trauma that she never wants to be in the Grail War again, and that she could never do what her sister was able to, that such things were an impossible task for her. Despite that, Lancer,
that's why
along
she
with
doesn't want
Messiah's
to
dog
join the Holy
familiars, would
Grail
break
War.
into her house, attempting to kill her. She barely defends herself with her magecraft, escaping to Garden where she's nearly killed. Ultimately though, she summons Saber as her servant in the nick of time, the same Saber from the last Grail War, Arthur Pendragon. Ayaka awes in the sight of Saber in her garden, who immediately protects her from Lancer, destroying his weapon. As Lancer retreats, Ayaka realizes that she is forced to take part in the Grail War once again as a master, regardless of her consent. After this, it's unclear exactly what happens with her since, as I've said, Fate Prototype hasn't been properly made, but we do know some things and potential plot points that may act as a general guide to how it may have been. Fate Prototype would have been an Otome game, and the known choices would have been Saber, Archer, Lancer, and Rider, with Saber being the main hero like how Artoria is the main heroine of Fate Stay Night. We see glimpses into the life she has through flash forwards and fragments. She continues her life as a high school student, but also gets the attention of Misaya and a mysterious exchange student that we'd later learn is the Rider class servant Perseus, who would actually eventually team up with Ayaka to fight Castor at the school at one point, since Castor would throw the school into an alien realm of sorts. Saber would become like Ayaka's guardian in the story, Ayaka seeing him as her perfect prince and protector. Throughout the Grail War, Saber and Ayaka would grow close with one another, Saber sort of becoming the proper human father figure that Ayaka never truly had. They would cook together, Saber making her big meals, as well as giving her advice that would help her a lot. One example is seeing Ayaka's incompatibility with witchcraft due to her trauma, so Saber suggested that she try and practice formal craft instead based on Misaya's advice. While it is not the typical Sajyou magecraft, and a craft most Megai don't use, Ayaka had a much stronger compatibility with it, even surpassing most normal magus with her talent, becoming a far stronger magus as a result of switching her craft. During what would assumingly be a romantic scene, she would try and confess her feelings to Saber during Twilight in a classroom, but she would be interrupted by Gilgamesh, who would compliment her a lot and propose to her right on the spot, shocking her and making her run out of the room in a babbling panic while blushing. God, I wish I could propose to her instead. Wait. Sorry. She also would have been poisoned by something at some point, and Archer would have been the only one to have the cure, taunting Saber and leading him to have a duel for the cure, as Gilgamesh drew the conclusion that whoever won the duel would cure Ayaka and take her hand in marriage. The result of this battle is unknown. In the semi-late stages of the war, she would have lost Saber during a fight against Sancrade and Berserker, who took Ayaka's command seals and corrupted Saber. If such a thing happened, Lancer would lose his master, as Misaya's curse would have killed her. As such, Ayaka would contract with Lancer and attempt to fight both Berserker and the corrupt Saber, while attempting to save and cure the latter as Ayaka wants Saber returned to her safely. After defeating Sancrade, he would reveal Monika's existence as the final master, as well as the Beast Servant in the Grail. So she and Saber would eventually go and battle Monika and the Beast in one final bout.
Oh, so that's Monika.
I feel Ayaka will hit really close to home for a lot of people. She was compared to others since birth, creating an inferiority complex that sort of manifests in wanting to spend time with and being like someone else. Sustaining massive trauma over the First War and loss of her own family, making her take massive damage to her mind, while also making her lead down to a path of loneliness, self-doubt, constant failures, and self-loathing. That's the build of a very serious character, one that will resonate with a lot of people with similar insecurities. However, throughout the Grail War, Ayaka is described to go through various major changes. It starts off with her being initially fearful of the prospect of being a master, but eventually mustering up the courage to announce that she'll find the war, that even someone like her could do something like that. At certain points, both Saber and Archer note that when Ayaka takes her glasses off, her personality changes a bit and we see glimpses of Ayaka's true self deep down, and her demeanor seems to become brighter, braver, and stronger. She's naturally timid in public and around people, but inside her house, she becomes more confident, as she feels comfortable there and that she has a responsibility to take care of it. She has positive relationships with not only Saber, but also potentially Archer, Lancer, Rider, and maybe even Misaya. Ayaka would get to find people to rely on, and with her changing her magecraft to formal craft, as well as her surprise talent in it, she would finally gain confidence in her own abilities, not because she magically improved, but because she found a new approach to succeed in her own right with the help and support of Saber. By the end of the story, thanks to the help of Saber and the events of the Second Holy Grail War, the Ayaka Sajyou we would see would no longer be the same one we begun with. She would no longer be alone, or maybe even feel as lonely. She would no longer have overly average abilities or feel incompetent. She would no longer hate herself and would finally find her own value and pride. She wouldn't completely forget her trauma, but she would be able to stand and walk all on her own in spite of it. By the end of the story, Ayaka Sajyou would ultimately face her unparalleled genius sister as a confident, brave, and strong person. You fucking go, girl. In terms of her abilities and quirks, we don't know all the specifics, but I'll go over what I can. Ayaka's original magecraft was an old kind of dark witchcraft. From what we've seen of it, it allows her to bend nature, shooting black feathers and controlling plants. However, during the war, Saber would eventually notice her trouble with witchcraft, and suggest that she try and use formalcraft instead, which is magecraft that uses surrounding mana around her, as he thinks the nature of it may fit her better. This proved correct, as Ayaka's affinity for formalcraft is absurdly high, to the point that Ayaka is able to use it even better than most top-tier Magi, proving it to be a special talent that only she has. She also apparently shares a really close connection with crows. Finally, Ayaka has a workshop in her house called Garden, which is a sanctuary created for her by her mother. It is filled with plants and pigeons, and she takes care of it as well as practice her magecraft there. As for personal thoughts on Ayaka, well, where do I begin? I said back during the introduction that I lovingly refer to Ayaka as my female counterpart. That's an inside joke of sorts, because as an Asian girl with dark brown hair wearing glasses, she physically really resembles me, and my friends can attest to that. Heck, Shujin, who is somewhat modeled after my real-life appearance, well, you can see the similarities. She's like a gender-bent version of IRL Manpig with blue eyes, and that's kind of insane. And it's kind of just a thing that I'm male Ayaka. But in reality, the phrase holds more meaning than just that meme. This will get a little personal, but I need to share some things about my life for you to truly understand how I feel about her.
Okay guys, so that's the end of this video, which is Type Moon Character Showcase Ayaka Sajyou by Extreme as Manpig. And after watching this video, I agree that Ayaka Sajyou is a very inspiring main character of Fate series. But again, that it's too bad that there is no a proper anime adaptation for Fate Prototype. And if I can give my opinion about the story concept between Manaka and Ayaka Sajyou, I think it's like the combination of Shinji and Sakura's role in Fate Stay Night, when Manaka and Shinji become the evil older sister or brother, and they will do whatever it takes to fulfill their ambitions, even though in the end they will hurt their own siblings. But now I'm glad that I can see Ayaka again in Fate Strange Fate. I'm not gonna spoil anything about Ayaka in Fate Strange Fate, but at least I can see her role and also her character development in this series. And from this video, I learned that Ayaka Sajyou is pretty similar to Aozaki Toko because her personality changes when she takes off her glasses. I think that's a very interesting fact and a new information for me. So thanks for the one who shared the link of the video in the comment section. I really appreciate it. It's a very informative video about Ayaka Sajyou, and as usual, if you guys have another video that you want me to react to, just put it in the comment section. So thank you guys for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you again on my next video, and take care.